I want to talk you through our ultimately secret weapon when it comes to website visitor tracking and show you it via this really, pretty straightforward but extremely powerful process. So, when we engage in a project together, we'll be ultimately generating leads for you on your behalf, as you can see. So we've got your website, right? We've got Pearl Lemon lead generation, which starts, and it really should probably be, a separate tab almost. But as we look at it, we'll generate leads for you, okay? And these prospects will get messaged daily, okay? And then, as a consequence of that, you'll get, two types of, for example, amongst the responses, there's two that I want to focus upon. You'll get direct, warm responses, okay? So this is, of course, somebody who says, hey, I'm interested, can I hear more? Here's my phone number, how do we move this forward? Maybe, some variation of that. And there's a process in place for that person that we could directly reach out to them via a phone call, or we could make an introduction to you via, for example, an email forward or a shared message on LinkedIn or some kind of variation depending upon the platform. But that's that process there. Then you've got the other people where most agencies, certainly as we've come across them, maybe we don't know if any other agency does this, to be honest with you, you'll get no response from a potential prospect, but of course somewhere along the journey there's either a reference to your website in plain text or there's a direct link to your website. Now that prospect will go ahead and visit your website, okay? They'll visit your website and they might not even, think about responding to you, but they haven't responded to you, right? So you don't really know what's happening. Now, in most cases, or in every case, that is actually a lost lead because there's a potential that person has shown some interest. We just don't know it yet, of course. Now, what we do is that we set up website visitor tracking. So what that means is every ultimately, business who comes to your site, providing it's from a business IP, will be able to engage in some level of tracking for the company that's visiting your site, right? So we can identify anonymous visitors who are coming to your site, and it's over 95% of visitors that come to your website leave without leaving any level of actual details. So imagine being able to actually identify these businesses or, an individual within a business potentially who's come to your website. So when that happens, you'll get lead notifications. With our system, we're able to integrate it to, a CRM. We're able to get notifications on a daily basis as to who's visiting your website. And therefore, you get an additional a second layer of daily leads that are coming in, right? Now, based upon, these leads that come through, and again, we can set up powerful filters for these leads. We can look at companies of a certain size. We can look at, ultimately, businesses that have visited your website more than once, so we can layer the level of lead depending upon the volume of people that are coming to your site. And to be honest with you, in many cases, we'll also uncover leads who are visiting your website from completely different channels. If you're thinking about lead generation, it's probably the case that you've done some, you're doing some, you're not happy with the service that you've been provided, or there's some variation and some level of activity that means you've already got people that are visiting your website that are leaving without a trace. And we are able to open Pandora's box with that and ultimately send these email updates to your team, right? So you're able to get leads for your actual callers or for your business development managers or for, internally that you can actually activate and call back. Now, if you want us to take it a step further, we can actually get involved with that process and we can follow up with these website visitors, okay? We can follow up with these website visitors. Whilst it won't always be the direct individual, we won't have access to the direct individual, we can find the business and then we can begin making inroads within that company so that ultimately they'll either, as you can see, book into your calendar. We'll have a calendar booking that we can then generate for you. So imagine that. You've got someone who is ultimately coming to your website, or a business that comes to your website a couple of times. They leave because they're still in the thought process. They haven't left any contact information. We're able to track that visitor. We can identify, what company that is. We integrate that into your CRM. We then are able to pass those leads to your actual sales team, or we can follow up via phone call with that website visitor to book an appointment in your calendar so you can just turn up and then close that person. This is an extremely powerful process that's able to unearth a whole new layer of leads and totally, ultimately, potentially transform your lead generation.